Well, today I want to bring you a message that I've entitled Greater Perspective. Greater Perspective. We're in the series called Greater, and today we're going to learn about greater perspective. When Jesus came to the planet 2,000 years ago, he showed up to a planet that was very much in need. Okay? Very much like our planet today is very much in need. And as Jesus walked the planet, he was doing what we call ministry. In other words, heaven's resources were meeting human needs through the life of Jesus. That's what ministry is, when heavenly resources meet human needs. And so imagine this, everyone. Like put yourself in the shoes of the disciples. You're walking with Jesus and you're watching Jesus do radical ministry. Like people are being healed and you're there and you're watching. You're watching Jesus defend the woman caught in the act of adultery. Can you imagine? I wish I could be a fly on the wall when that was going down. You know what I mean? Like this woman was caught in the act of adultery and you're just sitting there on the edge like, what are they going to do? Like these guys are saying that they need to throw rocks at this woman, and there's all this tension, and Jesus begins to write in the sand and he chases off all these religious Pharisees and he guards this woman and he restores this woman, and you're standing there in the middle of all of these beautiful stories, the feeding of the 5,000. Can you imagine you're there and you're thinking, yeah, there's no way this is going to happen. There's a lot of people and we ain't got nothing nearby that's going to feed. Like we cannot cater anything this last minute, Jesus. This is not going to go down. And then he gets all crazy and prays for bread and starts passing it out, and you're thinking, okay, like this is going to work. And my goodness, that bread multiplies and the 5,000. And you're literally there in the middle of all of these things. Now watch this. It's pretty great, right? Come on, you know what I mean? Isn't that some great ministry, you would say? Right, isn't God doing some great things through the life of Jesus? Now get this. The disciples are watching all of this take place, and one day as they are sitting under the teaching of Jesus, he kind of slides this statement in the middle of one of his teachings. I want you to see it with me. Over in the book of John, Jesus is teaching. He says this, verily, verily, I tell you, truly, truly, I tell you. He's like, listen up, everybody. That's what this means. Like, lean into this. Whoever believes in me will do the works I've been doing. You're already going, what? Like what you've been doing, we're going to do? You mean ministry is going to happen through my life like it's happening through your life? Like you're going to use people of faith to do what you're doing? Like you've got to be kidding me. We thought we were here just to watch you do what you do, right? If I was a disciple, that's what I'm thinking. Like, isn't my job just to be here and like, good job, Jesus. Keep going, Jesus. Like, you're doing good, Jesus. Like, keep it up, right? That's my job. But now you're saying, I'm going to do it, and you're already a little bit, like, shell-shocked, you know what I mean? And then Jesus drops this, okay? Like, you're going to do what I've been doing. Oh, and they will do even, say it with me, greater. Did you know that was in your Bible? Like, did you ever read past that and just like stop and let that sink in for a second? You will do even greater things than these because I am going to the Father. Hold up. So, Jesus is saying, you see what I'm doing? Pretty cool. You'll do greater. Have you seen what's taken place through my life? Have you seen the cities changed? Have you seen the lives changed? Have you seen the people restored? Have you seen what's taken place through my life? Yeah. It's all great. But listen, you're going to do greater. Disciples, listen to me. What you've been a part of now pales in comparison to what you'll be a part of then. What you'll be a part of then is actually greater than what you're standing in the middle of right now. And Jesus was calling his disciples to start thinking a little bit bigger, to get outside the box of where they've been. And I'm sorry, I'm yelling at everybody. I'll calm down. I just get a little excited. Everybody, it's okay. He's calling them to greater. Friends, listen to me. I want you to understand this. The same calling of God upon his disciples toward greater in that moment is the same calling of God toward greater that exists on your life in this moment. God is calling us, his church, his people, to greater. He's always moving us toward more. He's pushing us to think greater, dream greater, to believe God for even more. Jesus was looking forward to a day when he would go to be with his Father, notice he says, you're going to do greater things than these, for I'm going to go be with my Father. And then over the next couple weeks, I'm going to break this down for you. This is kind of our launching verse, our springboard verse. But Jesus was looking forward to a day when he would go to be with his Father, and he would pour out his Spirit upon his disciples. And his disciples now, instead of one Jesus filled with the Spirit of God walking around doing ministry, there was hundreds of disciples now going around doing ministry everywhere they went. He was looking forward to that day. If you're a disciple in that moment with Jesus, you cannot possibly, think about it, they could not have possibly imagined what God was about to do through their lives. Do you know what I'm saying? They're watching Jesus do ministry like, this is great. But what Jesus sees is greater than what they're seeing in the moment, because what Jesus sees is those 12, listen everybody, lean in, those 12 were going to be filled with the Spirit of God, and God was going to use them to take the gospel to the ends of the earth. God was going to use those 12 to bring hope to every tribe and to every nation. God would use those 12 to spread the good news of Jesus Christ all the way to the point. You go down thousands and thousands and thousands of years, and you find people like us gathering together in buildings like this, built for God, because those 12 were called by God to greater. Think about it, church, amen? And God then says, listen, over your life is the same call. Greater, greater, greater. They could not have possibly imagined, but what Jesus is doing here is what I'm hoping you let Jesus do in your heart today. What he's doing here is getting them to understand that there just might be more. What he's doing here is he's planting a seed in their heart that will someday grow to produce more. He's planting, like they could not have imagined, but he's getting them ready, right? You know what I mean? He's trying to get them to look up a little bit, to prepare themselves for what's ahead. And listen, I want to tell some of you, I want to tell you, church, God wants to prepare us for what's ahead. He wants to prepare you for what's ahead. He wants to get you, listen to me, you came in here today looking down, like, oh, this is good, you know? Some of you look down and you're like, this is not so good. I don't like what's happening right now. Whatever it might be for you, this is good, this is not so good. God says to you today, well, lift your head. Look ahead. Because what I have for you ahead of you is greater than what you're standing in the middle of today. God says, listen, I have greater for you. Now, some of you right now, you're arguing with me in your head and you're checking out of the message because you don't believe it. And just do me a favor. Lean in, okay? Lean in. Because that expectancy. See, if these guys would have went, whatever, Jesus, then they never would have been able to engage in the greater that God was going to bring. They would have checked themselves out of what God was about to do. And so the Lord invites us in. And friends, listen, you've got to have, and what he's trying to get us to have, is a greater perspective. Now, if you're going to have a greater perspective, you've got to start with this. I'm going to give you two things. Here's the greater perspective God wants to bring us into. It's what he's trying to do in the disciples right now, and it's what he wants to do in the church today. Is if we're going to have a greater perspective, we got to start by broadening our vision, okay? Write that down. Broaden your vision. I'm going to give you 2 points today. The first one is this. If you're going to have a greater perspective, you've got to broaden your vision. It's what Jesus was trying to do with his disciples. He's getting them to broaden their vision, to see a bigger picture, to dream a little bigger, to think about what might be possible. He's getting them to broaden their vision. Jesus came to a world very much in need. He sent his disciples into a world very much in need. And friends, listen to me. Listen. You and I today live in a world very much in need. And what the world today needs is for you and I, the church, to broaden our vision. Okay? To broaden our vision. To think bigger, to think more, to get outside. Like what our world needs today is not better politicians. What our world needs today is a church that has a broader vision, okay? What the world needs today is Christian influence. What it needs are people who are willing to go into the workplace and stand for Christ. What our world needs are people willing to preach the gospel on our campuses. What the world needs today are people who are willing to share with others the hope of God for their lives. That's what our world needs today. Come on, anybody, you with me today? That's what our world needs today. So we'll never bring to the world what the world needs until we broaden our vision. We have to broaden our vision as a church. We have to broaden our vision as individuals. We have to broaden our vision. Now listen, this world's in need, and we have to broaden our vision. And the need of our world is not hard to see. Today, there's 40 million Americans struggling with hunger. 40 million Americans struggling with hunger. 12 million of them are children. Suicide and depression are on the rise. I covered this a few weeks ago. Suicide and depression are on the rise. 1 in 3 students admit to suffering from depression, and there are close to 100 suicide attempts every hour in America alone. Suicide is 2 times the murder rate and the number 1 killer of kids 15 to 24. Friends, we live in a world very much in need. 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 6 boys will be sexually abused before they turn 18. Human trafficking is the fastest growing criminal industry in the world, generating more than $150 billion every single year. Human trafficking, sex trafficking, drug, all of it. There are more people trapped in slavery today than ever before in human history. Think about that. There are more people trapped in slavery today than ever before in human history, and only 1% of those trapped in slavery are ever rescued from it. Friends, we're in a world of hurt, and we have a world that's in need. You turn on the news and you're bombarded by the need in this world, by the hurt in this world. You just start looking in your own circle. Do that, like that gets overwhelming a little bit. Like look in your own circle. And all of us have stories of our own hurt and our own need, right? And then we start looking in our own families and our own friends and our own neighbors and, so-and-so's job situation, so-and-so's kids, so-and-so's marriage, so-and-so's addiction, so-and-so. And we're all next to this need that's out there. And friends, Jesus fully intended that you and I would broaden our vision enough to impact and influence, to change what's happening around us. He fully intended it. Like Jesus said it this way in Matthew chapter 5, verse 13 and 14. He said, you, who? Who? Come on, church, who? You, meaning you and I, you are the salt of the earth. But if the salt loses its taste, how shall it be salty to restore? If it's no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled under people's feet. You are the light of the world, a city set on a hill. See, here's this need in the world, and what's God's answer to the need? What's God's remedy for the people who are hurting? What's God's remedy for the cities that need to be changed, for the lives that need to be restored? What's God's remedy for the world as it is today? For people, it's so dark out there. Well, guess what? You're a light. He says, you are the light. Not the pastor standing on the stage, not the staff, he says, you, all of y'all. This is what he said, all y'all. You all are the light. You are the light. You are the city on the hill. You are the salt. In other words, listen, it's emphatic. In other words, if it's not you, then it's no one else. Like if you're not the light, we don't have one. If you're not the salt, then there is none. If you're not the city on the hill, then then we live without one. If you don't bring the hope, no one else will. He says it's you. So here's what I'm trying to get you to understand. What I'm trying to get you to step into. God has greater for you. He came to a world filled of need, and he met that need, and then he turns and says, you're going to meet the need in a greater way. You're going to do even greater things than I'm doing. But we have to be willing to realize that he's called me into that. That's my responsibility. That's my calling. I'm called to go there. You see, friends, listen, I'm a world changer. But not just me. Listen, you're a world changer. Tell your neighbor, say, you're a world changer. Tell your neighbor, say, you're a world changer. Tell them like you mean it. Tell your neighbor the same, and so are you. And so are you. I want you, church, listen, I want you to carry the weight of what that means. This isn't me waiting for someone else to go out and change the world. This isn't me waiting for somebody to share the gospel with my neighbor. This isn't me waiting and hoping that someone talks to that person at work that really needs Jesus. You know what I mean? This isn't me waiting for God to do something on my campus. This is me taking the responsibility and saying, God, you called me to go because, God, you called me to be a part of the greater. So, God, I'll wear that. I'll take that on me. I'll step toward the greater. Christian, Your life is the life that has the greatest potential to have the greatest impact. So listen to me. You're not just an employee. And you're not just at that job on accident. You listen, dear mom, you're not just a mommy. You've been given that honor and that responsibility on purpose to shape the next generation, that they would be leaders amongst their generation, that they would bring hope to their generation. See, you're not just changing diapers, you're changing the world, okay? Come on, somebody, you with me? And you've got to understand the importance of that. You are the light. You are the salt. And friends, you have to broaden your vision. You're not just a teen. Look at me, teens. You're not just a teen. And you're not just the future of the church. You are the church. You're not just a student. You've been put there for such a time as this. There's a lot of need, but there's a lot of people that God has called to meet that need. There's a lot of people that God has called into greater. And what the world needs today more than anything is the church to wake up and broaden their vision to see past what's happening now and into what God can do. Come on, church. Is anybody with me today? Help the sick preacher out a little bit. Not feeling good, but he needs this. I want this for us. I want this for you. Now, and it's not just us as a church. I want to challenge you. Jesus called you into greater. He called you to broaden your vision. And when he calls you to broaden your vision, you start seeing things different. This is what happens when you broaden your vision. You see things different. Why? Because I have a broader vision. I want you to know I see Redlands different. I want you to know I see Beaumont different. We as a church, we see the city of San Bernardino different. We see this valley different. Anyone with me? We see things different because we're willing to broaden our vision. Friends, listen, I see things different. And that's what happens when you broaden your vision. I see the person that's been written off by everyone else different. I see the people that everyone picks on Facebook and all the Christian community labels and comes against. I see them different. I see them loved by God. I see them as the ones Jesus Christ died to reach. And I'm not going to run from the ones he called us to reach and he came to reach. Come on, are you with me? Because I see them. Listen, I've broadened my vision. I'm not just a narrow person in my little corner complaining about the world. You know, I've broadened my vision and realized God's called me to reach that world. So I'm going to wear that. I'm going to broaden my vision. And not just as a church do we start to see things different. As an individual, I want you to listen to broaden your vision. That you'd see things different as an individual. Because I know right now some of you, you're sitting here and you're struggling through where your life is or what's going on around you right now. And I want you to know while you're breathing today that God will speak life into your circumstance today. That God's desire is to move you from where you are and into the greater. And what I want you to do today is just to believe and to hope and to be willing to look up, to think about, to engage your heart and mind on what that greater might be. Because until you do, you're always just going to be stuck. Until you start to see things the way Jesus sees things. Until you start to believe God for your friendships and to get his heart for your future relationships, then friends, you're just going to be stuck with what you have right now. You see what I'm saying? Like you've got to be willing to think past what is. Until you're willing to engage in a broader vision for your marriage, then friends, you might just be stuck with the way it is right now. And maybe you don't like the way things are right now. Well, friends, listen, you've got to broaden your vision. Don't get stuck with the way it is because God always has more. He says, I'm going to do even greater. And friends, it's not just for the church corporately. It's for every single one of us individually. You've got to learn to see things the way he sees things. You've got to look at things different. I remember the disciples, they were looking at all these crowds coming around. And all they saw was a crowd. There's a crowd. But Jesus always saw things. He broadened his vision. See, Jesus was like, oh, man, we've got to feed all these people. That's what the disciples were. Oh, my gosh, what are we going to do? It's just a crowd. But Jesus said, what does it tell us? It says he saw them as sheep without a shepherd. He had a broader vision. He saw need, and he's like, I'm going to go meet that need. Friends, that's where we need to engage our heart. We need to broaden our vision. Say it with me. I'm going to broaden my vision. Say it with me. I'm going to broaden my vision. Now, all of that sounds so great, but I want you to lean in with me. Do you ever experience this? You go to church and the pastor's like, we're going to go reach the world. I'm going to see our lives change. You're like, amen. And you walk out the doors, you're like, shoot. There's like a lot on fire out here. You know what I mean? Like, there's like a lot of need. We're going to go. And you're like, and you feel like sometimes you walk out and everything's on fire and you come out of church with your squirt gun. You know, like we've loaded it up. And you look around like, psh, psh, psh. And you kind of go, am I even doing anything? Like, is this really having an impact? Is everything that the Bible said really true? Is greater really there for me? I mean, because I don't really feel like I'm doing much. And is this like this little thing I'm doing here to help change the marriage and move it toward? Is it really? I mean, Chris, you just said there's 40 million people that are going hungry in America today. I mean, are we, how do you, come on, you with me? You ever feel that tension? So let me help you out. Like, here's what you need to do. You need to be okay with this. Because if you're not okay with this, then what's going to happen is you're going to check out of everything God's called you to. Is that you've got to learn to broaden your vision, but at the same time, you've got to learn to narrow your focus. You broaden your vision, but you narrow your focus. Think about Jesus, okay? Because he's always the perfect example. This is where we want to look. Think about Jesus. When Jesus showed up, there was a world in hurt and need. World. I said it like that so you don't understand. It's a big, big need. But when you look at the life of Jesus, what did he do? How did he go about meeting the needs of the world, right? He went around and said, hey, you 12, come here. What did he do? He's going to reach the world by narrowing his focus. I'm going to invest in you. When you look at the miracles Jesus did, you look at the lives that Jesus touched and Jesus changed. He's walking. Think about this. And I'm not gonna wrestle with the theological implications of this and what all this means. I'm just gonna point out and let you wrestle with it. Jesus is walking by people who have need. Think about it. And is he ministering and touching everybody who needed to be healed? Think about this. He's walking by people. He's walking by people. But and there's crowds and there's masses, and Jesus isn't necessarily going and meeting the needs always of everybody and all the masses. But what is he doing? Watch. Hey, you with the withered hand, step forward. Hey, you, Zacchaeus, trying to hide out in the tree. What's up, buddy? Let's have a party at your house today. That's what he told Zacchaeus. Oh, disciples, today we're going to go through Samaria because there's a woman there at the well. What do they have in common? As you watch Jesus, what was he doing? He would reach the world. He would change the masses. He would change a city, but he would do it one person at a time. What all those have in common is that they're individuals. Jesus went to the person. Jesus went, as we say it in our church, he went after the one. Jesus even pushed this. Listen. He pushed this into the heart of the church. He pushed this into the calling of the church. He told the church, he said, listen, when I leave the 99 to go after the what? One? Jesus was pushing us to have a broad vision, but you're never going to live in and see the broad vision until you narrow your focus and you do one. You do that. You get after this one step. And so listen, you might not be able to change and reach everybody at your place of employment, but can you reach one? Listen, you might not be able to go and right now you don't feel like you have what it takes to turn the tide within your school and it's a liberal and whatever it is you're facing. You might not feel like you can do that, but listen, can you do one? Can you reach one? Can you share with one? Friends, I bet you can. And see, what happens is what the enemy does is he likes to whisper to us that it's never going to happen. It's too big of a job. It's too big of a task, and you're never going to get there. And you walk out overwhelmed by the fire with your little squirt gun. And Jesus says, you start squirting with your little squirt gun. You use what I gave you. You be faithful to do what you're called to do with what I've given you to do it. You go after the one. You do what you can. And God will use what you do when you're doing what you can to do more than you ever could. You do the one, you focus on the one, you narrow your focus. What happens if you don't understand that? You're going to check out. Some of you right now, I'm all up in your face. I'm all up in your grill about this because you've checked out. You've told yourself, I can't, it's too big, and you've checked out. Friends, I'm asking you today to check back in. You can't check out. You've got to learn like Jesus to be on the lookout for the one. You might not be able to reach everyone, but that doesn't excuse you from reaching someone. See, Christian, you are the salt. You are the light. You have a responsibility, and we are responsible to do something for someone. If I can't do everything for everyone, but I am responsible to do something for someone. Can I tell you guys a little thing that Tatum and I do? From season to season, we always ask ourselves, who's our one? You know, as we've seen the church grow and God has done so many incredible things in the church, there could be a tendency to think, I can't, meet every need, and we can't. I can't meet every need. I can't be at every hospital. I can't be at every need. I can't. But here's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to check myself out to go hide in an office somewhere and keep myself from it. So what I'm going to do, and what Tate and I do every season, we say, who's our ones? Who's the one? And maybe it's one couple for a season that we're going to pour into, and God's going to use us in there. That's the one for me. And maybe it's one student that I'm going to help come alongside and help them to see the gifts that God's put in them. Maybe it's one. I'm just going to do for the one what I wish I could do for everyone. But I can't do it for everyone. Is this helping anybody? So I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it for the one. That's what I'm going to say to you today. Listen, do for the one what you wish you could do for everyone. Start there. Start somewhere. You've got to, or else you'll never see what it is God intends. You'll never see the greater if you get stuck under this weight. And so I want you to look for that one. I want you right now in your heart to answer, who's my one? Maybe it's one couple that you know is struggling, and you've got a strong marriage. You've been married for years and years, and you've got this very interesting, difficult thing, wonderful thing figured out. And you're going to disciple that one couple. Maybe it's one couple. Maybe it's one age group that God's called you to. Maybe it's one ministry God's called you to. But I want you to focus and narrow in on the one. You got to be okay with starting somewhere. He wants you to broaden your vision and to narrow. We got to narrow our focus. And let me close it like this for you guys. It's not just as a church we narrow our focus, or in our outreach efforts we narrow our focus. It's in everything, in everything. So this is a principle that applies, starting somewhere. This principle applies everywhere. You've got to start somewhere. If we don't narrow our focus, then you're going to end up like this. You feel stuck. Some of you feel stuck today. Okay, you feel stuck going nowhere. And the reason you feel stuck going nowhere is because you're unwilling to start somewhere. Like you're going to get nowhere until you start somewhere. Does that make sense, everyone? And you're telling yourself, like, oh, I don't know how I'm going to get to that, or how this is going to happen, or when that's going to happen. You just keep throwing it off, and it's all so big. And blah, blah, blah. But listen, you'll never see what God intends until you go, I'm just going to start somewhere. Like, you're never going to see the book completed until you, like, write a sentence. You know what I mean? And you can sit around with this dream in your heart all day long, like this thing that God put in you, this thing that you believe He wants to do. And but until you sit down and go, I'm going to start somewhere. I can't tell you. It's always music. People are into music, right? They're really good, and they're gonna do an album someday. Anyone ever talk to someone like that? You got any friends like this? Like, man, I got an album. It's gonna be good, and I got an album I'm gonna do. It's like you haven't written a song, like a song. Well, you just kind of like write a song. Well, it's not gonna be good. Yeah, probably it won't be good. Right? But how about you write 15 not good songs, and you might end up with one good song, so you can start working toward your album, okay? You know what I mean? Like, you got to start somewhere, okay? So, like the A on the report card, everyone wants the A on the report card. Do you know where the A on the report card comes from? It comes from you getting the A on the test, right? That's how it starts. You don't just wake up and, pay for the school, and then, don't you wish you could just pay and get your A? But you can't. You can't pay. That's wrong. The A on the report card comes from A on the test. The A on the test comes from a whole lot of study. And a whole lot of study calls get your rear in a seat and study. It calls from a decision, right? You see what I'm saying? And everyone wants to live. See, our society doesn't get this. Everyone wants to live in the moment when they got the A on the report card. Everyone wants those moments. Everyone wants the glory, but no one wants to do the grind. You know what I mean? We want to live there, but we don't want to do this. And to Zerubbabel, or in Zechariah, he says this. In Zechariah, scripture says, do not despise the day of what? Small beginnings. Like, you'll never see the greater, is what I'm trying to tell you, until you're willing to do the little. Until you're willing to engage in the small. Do not despise the day of small things. For the Lord rejoices to see what? The work begin. Why? Because the work's never going to come into fruition until it begins. So here's what I'm going to tell you, friends. Here's what I'm trying to bring home as best I can. You're never going to get there until you start somewhere. You've got to start somewhere. Where is your somewhere? Oh, David, he was king, and he was a great king. God used him in mighty ways. Oh, God, I want to be used in mighty ways. Oh, God, I want to see you do this in my life and that. Oh, God, I have great. Well, where was David when God called him? He was out hanging with sheep, being faithful to do the little things. He was faithful in what God put him in. Just love these sheep. Just take care of these sheep. Just guard these sheep. Just protect these sheep. Oh, and by the way, bring some pizza to your brothers, bread and cheese right now, because they're in the battle. And oh, man, what's he doing? He's being faithful. And as he's being faithful, the call of God hits, the next step hits his life. And if he wasn't being faithful in the little things, then God never would have given him more. He could have never seen the more things. See, you got to start somewhere. And some of you, God has you tending sheep right now. And you're like, you loved it when you first got into it. You're like, wow, I get to do this? And now you're like, oh, sheep, right? I got more sheep I got to hang out with. Like, and what I want to tell you is this, friends. Don't disengage. Man, I've been trying so. Some of you are doing this. You're checking out. I heard God tell me to be faithful to my spouse. I heard God tell me to press into the life of my child. Listen to me. This is for somebody. He or she's been running. And I heard God tell me, don't give up. I heard God tell me, don't stop praying. I heard God tell me, right? And God spoke that into your heart. And you've been going, and here today you're sitting here going, I don't know if I can do this anymore. You're losing that tenacity. When you first did it, there's fervor. It's like, come on. Like Dave with a sheep. There's like, this is awesome, it's awesome. But today you're growing tired. And I'm going to tell you this, listen. Be faithful in the small things, because it's your faithfulness in the small things that allows you to experience the greater things. And you'll never touch, you'll never see, you never taste the greater things if you give up in the small things. Scripture says it like this: do not grow weary in doing good, for in due season you will reap a harvest. Do not grow weary. Listen, the issue isn't even don't just quit. The issue is don't get weary. Keep your heart steered. Keep your fervor there. Stay in the moment. Stay engaged. Give it your all right now, or you'll never see tomorrow. This goes everywhere. Yeah, I hear parents with 2-year-olds. Man, I can't wait for them to get out of the stage. You know what I mean? I can't wait for them to get out of the stage. Like, they may never get out of that stage if you don't engage with them while they're in that stage. You know what I mean? Like parents, their kids turn 2 and they're just like, I don't know. They're running crazy in the other room and I don't know what to do. Engage in that stage. Give it your all in that stage, or they'll never get to the next stage. See, they need you. Everything in life works like this. Give it your all. Engage in the now. Engage in the small. Greatness is what we choose to do in the now. Success is dependent on what you do now. It's not just the Instagrammable moments that everybody sees. It's the behind the scenes moments that nobody sees, where you're being faithful to things that no one even cares about or no one even knows about. You be faithful there in the small things. Some of us have given up on the small things as we close, because the small things are hard things, aren't they? The small things are sometimes the hardest things. It's hard to do this again. It's hard to believe again. It's hard to make that phone call one more time when all I ever get is it's hard to gauge in the small things. It's hard to go out and tend the sheep and do something that seems lowly when all my friends are out. Man, they're already moving toward the king, and they're already. How do I see? And it gets hard. But it's in those moments where God works character into our life. It's in those moments where God works his will into our life. And so, friends, you engage in the small things. You pay attention to the details. You think about, as a church, what we've seen, what God's doing in our midst. You know what it's built on? A lot of people doing a lot of small things. A lot of people doing a lot of hard things. A lot of people willing to give week after week, to tithe week after week, to serve week after week, right? To show up and set up and tear down week after week, to go in and love on the kids week after week, week after week, week after week. Can we thank God for some people who are willing to do the things that some of us never even see? You never even see it, but all of us get to enjoy it. All of us get to live in it. All of us get to be a part of it. And so, friends, listen, it's always in the little things. God has greater things, church. He's calling us to greater things. He has greater things for our city. I'm not just saying this stuff from a stage because it sounds good. I believe it. I believe what we've seen God do over these last almost 5 years, it's literally just the beginning. We're 5 years old. It's just the beginning of everything God's going to do. There's greater. Jesus said, "You see what I'm doing?" And I almost feel like when I read that passage, I felt like what Jesus said to his disciples, "Do you see what I'm doing? I've got greater." I felt like he's saying, "Hey, church, citizens, do you see what I've done? I've got greater." And in order to move into the greater, I've got to be, okay. I want to be faithful to the little today. Because if I'm going to know the greater, I got to be okay with being faithful to the little, to the small, the things that no one sees. You with me, church? And so we're going to stretch our faith. We're going to believe God for greater. And as we broaden our vision, we're going to narrow our focus in Jesus' name.